Hello there. This is Jedi General of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you are listening to Jedi Eternal.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside Braxton the Comfortable Taylor.
The Comfortable?
The Comfortable. And I call you that because after many years of our debating between the fact you think that I give you the poor chair and everything, and any studio we've been in, which I say studio, that term very
room in my
loosely,
house or your house, I say.
That we're probably the most in a studio than we've ever been.
True.
But throughout our different places we've recorded, I've always had usually a nicer chair because it's at my house, and you use just like whatever chair is available.
Yeah.
Well, today, folks, Braxton is sitting in the chair that I normally sit in.
Whoa.
And you may ask, why is that? It's because I got a new, even better chair.
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm thankful that he didn't just throw it out, but I did get the junky hand-me-down.
I did think of you specifically because my wife, I was talking to her about it and like, should I get rid of it, blah, blah, blah. She thought about maybe using it. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep it for Braxton to use during recording. So I
appreciate that.
So you're very welcome. So I hope your tush is very comfortable.
Much more
today,
than usual.
But it's good to be back. And wow, we watched an amazing episode of Ahsoka.
Yeah, so good.
Just a few days ago. And we're going to be talking about that, of course, in our main topic. We also want to thank General Kenobi for opening this episode for us.
Thank you, General Kenobi.
Such a kind, sweet man. He would do that for us.
Taking the break from the war to help us out.
But so this is episode 2 of season 2. So if this is your first time listening, don't worry. You don't have to go back. You don't have to start at season 1, episode 1. You don't have to do that. Feel free to do it if you wish. But now is a perfect time to start. Perfect time to start listening. And we're going to, review that episode of Ahsoka, and we got lots of other fun things. But first, as always, we do want to thank our Patreon producers who are always so kind to help us out. And our Patreon producer is a special membership you get by spending $5 a month. And that $5 a month gets you exclusive access to an exclusive series called And Other Stuff, where we talk about everything that is not Star Wars. And there's multiple episodes up on there, and there will be more of them, we promise. We promise there will be. Things are kind of crazy right now with Ahsoka, but we'll get back to it, we promise. And then there's also, you get this series much quicker than everyone else. You get it usually at least 2 days early. And on top of that, you also get a thank you. We say your name on the podcast, which we are about to do. So there's a lot of good stuff, right? You think so, Braxton?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, come on.
Yeah, now hold on a second. I got to pull up these names. So
I mean, it's our Patreon, so I got to say it's
so,
good, right?
Say something.
Wait, what? Oh, what am I doing? Oh, okay. It's a great deal, guys. I mean, no, we're due for another And Other Stuff episode pretty soon here. But with that said, we was pretty consistent for a couple months there, and I think there's either 10 or 11 episodes on there
There's
now?
something like that.
Yeah, so, there's plenty of content. Again, as we've talked about in previous episodes, we have plenty of content on there. We talk about a wide range of movies and video games and talk about some funny, crazy experiences in our lives, but, just different things we've done, trips and all that good stuff. So
there's some crazy stories in there.
There is, and we have some fun on there.
Yeah, but we do want to thank our Patreon producers, and that is JB, Josh and Birkinshaw, Tara Bolin, Grayson David Gill, Alex Mason, Corey Wise, Jay Camdar, Jenna, and Promise. So we want to thank you all so much for that. And now we have our trivia of the week.
Well, we're starting with fun fact, actually.
Oh, my bad. my bad.
What we're doing,
we're
guys,
still trying to get our
bearings. Yeah. So the first thing we'll do is start off with our fun fact of the week. Again, pulling from Star Wars Fascinating Facts, Story, Lore, and History from the Greatest Galaxy from Pablo Hidalgo. So this one is high-flying cosplay. In conjunction with the latest Star Wars films, ANA, the largest airline in Japan, dressed up jets in their fleets as Star Wars droids. This includes an R2-D2 jet, a BB-8 jet, and a C-3PO jet. Anthony Daniels actually signed the C-3PO one when it was unveiled at the Tokyo Haneda Airport in a special ceremony. So somewhere out there,
nice,
there is a C-3PO airplane signed by Anthony
So I guess
Daniels.
my question is it's like legit always a C-3PO plane out there, or was it just like for a while like a wrap and then they...
That I don't know. I would assume.
I would be interested to know if like it was just for a little bit, or if like it's legit like still out there as a C-3PO.
Yeah.
airplane.
Well, if anybody knows, let us know in the comments. So yeah, that is our fun fact for the week. But
that was
now,
fun. That was a lot of fun.
It was fun. Truly, it was fun. And also, it's kind of not. I guess foreboding sounds bad. It's whatever the word is that is not in a bad connotation, because their next Star Wars Celebration is in Tokyo. So anyway, kind of appropriate. Anyway, so our...
Don't remind me. I'm still upset about that.
I know. We're not going to be able to go as much as we definitely would like to. So our trivia for this week, and I do want to apologize for last week. I did say 60 million instead of 6. And you know what? That's why you can't see. I have the official fact book, but you can't trust random websites when they do trivia.
Oh, man. What a noob.
No, you didn't catch either. So anyway,
Wow.
So with that being said, we're getting to this one, and I know this one is true this time. So our trivia for the week is the Star Wars Holiday Special marked the first appearance of which Star Wars character? I will say again, the Star Wars Holiday Special marked the first appearance of which Star Wars character? So, as per last week, we're going to let you guys think about that, put your answer in the comments, and we will come back with the answer at the end of the episode. So, put your thinking caps on, folks.
Wowza. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let's talk about what's going on this week in Star Wars. So our first story today is that Ahsoka Tano is coming to Star Tours next spring. And Harrison Dula arrived this week at Galaxy's Edge.
Nice.
So, it's been revealed that Ahsoka Tano will be joining Star Tours in Disneyland, in Disney World, specifically Hollywood Studios, and Disneyland Paris. So, have you ever been on Star Tours?
No, I have not.
No? Did we not do Star Tours?
I don't think we did Star Tours.
Interesting. No. Okay.
Not that I remember anyway.
So Star Tours is kind of like... You sit down in this, like, you could call it like a little mini theater type looking thing, and then it like moves around as you're as you're sitting in there, like the whole thing's moving like side by side, and and then you just like watch the screen. They've updated it already to kind of fit in with the sequel trilogy.
Okay.
And so now it looks like they're maybe going to kind of change that to be a little more specific to Ahsoka.
Okay,
So
cool.
that could be interesting. And it kind of keeps it fresh that they can continue to change things like that and allow people a reason to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
Again.
For sure.
And then along with that, we also have here that Harrison Dula is now in Galaxy's Edge.
Ooh.
And
cool.
As we have seen before... with whatever is kind of going on currently at Galaxy's Edge, they will introduce characters there. So for a long time, it was the sequel trilogy with Kylo Ren and Rey and Chewbacca, and they, I believe, are still there. But here, not too long ago, they started introducing like the Mandalorian, and now Harrison Dula's there. I don't know. Actually, I think Ahsoka's maybe there some too, right? I think so.
We never saw her, obviously.
We didn't see her, but I think maybe they've also... I feel like maybe I read that Ahsoka has been there recently as well. And so, they try to stay very, like, in universe. So I don't know if this is kind of like right now, Galaxy's Edge is a Mandoverse, like during the Mandoverse right now kind of deal. Or if they're mixing the timelines with some First Order stuff and the Mandoverse kind of at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we went, I was actually really hoping to see Mando, and we never got to see Mando. Now, we did get to see Chewbacca and Rey, so that was pretty cool. I was also hoping to see Kylo, but never saw Kylo either. So
yeah, I've seen Kylo there before in past times, but pretty much guaranteed you always end up seeing Rey and Chewbacca. I think I've always seen them when I've been there. And so, but yeah, it's cool that they're introducing new characters there that kind of along with whatever's going on currently in Star Wars. I think that's a good idea.
Right.
I think that is, can be exciting for the fans, especially kids, that maybe are watching Ahsoka and then they show up to Disneyland and see them there, right? Like that's pretty exciting. So
yeah, so I'm not sure if it was like it was released with this announcement or if it was like a preview for Disney insiders or whatever. But I did see a video of Hera in her native habitat there in Galaxy's Edge, and the actress is like very convincing. It looks a lot like Hera, and obviously as usual the costuming and makeup is on point and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
So it's really cool. Like I said, if you guys head out over to Galaxy's Edge, whether in California or in Florida, make sure if you spot any of them, let us know, take a picture, and we'll post it on the page. So
yeah, for sure.
Lots of good stuff. Okay, so our next piece of news here in This Week in Star Wars, and that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Fallen... wow, I tripped over that. I messed up my notes, clearly. Anyway, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor director, what is it, Stig Asmussen.
Yeah, however you say his last name.
Yeah, however it is, I don't know.
That was pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure the Nordic people love that. Anyway, he is actually leaving Electronic Arts, or EA. And so obviously, the Jedi games, the Star Wars Jedi games have been a big thing for EA. And after kind of the downfall of Battlefront. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a big deal, right? I mean, the director for both of these very big hit games is actually leaving. So
yeah, it is a big deal because as we have seen, they, he has proven to be a pretty good director, right? I mean, to have two hit games, critical and commercial success for both of these games, and reached a crazy amount of players. So like I think he did his job as a director. So for a fan of the series, it is a little concerning to see him go because I'm sure they have qualified people there that can step up to the plate, but we just know that he clearly knew what he was doing and he did it well.
Right.
And so it is kind of sad to see. It makes you a little nervous for the future because you want these games to continue to come out at the quality that they are, and still be as amazing as the last two were. So.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be something we're going to have to just kind of wait and see and hope, and you know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, it's there's nothing that we can really do about that at this point, and we guys got to assume that as these games are definitely the big flagship thing in my opinion for EA right now. I mean, maybe some people would disagree with that. That they're going to be taking active steps to find people to actively replace him and do just as good a job, but we'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. I don't know. I would hope that it'll nothing will change, that we won't even notice that this has happened, but they're still kind of trying to fix some of the issues with Survivor. When I say that, I mean like the performance issues. There were some, like if you played on performance mode, it still didn't really play at 60 frames like it was supposed to. And I think they just actually had an update where that's officially fixed. So I don't know where in the process of the next game they are. But I'd be curious to know, because there's not been a third game announced, but we know they're going to do it. It was always. They've said it's always been kind of the idea of it to be a trilogy.
Right.
So, the expectation is that there is going to be another game. And I am curious to know how far along they are with that. And if that had any part in his decision to leave.
Right.
Like if there were like creative differences or, that kind of thing. I would be kind of curious to know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I mean, it's hard to say, and that does scare me if there is creative differences to see where that would be going now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to go too deep into that because we have no clue what's going on or why it's even happening. So we don't want to like get too speculative and get ourselves scared, you know?
Right, right.
But anyway, so yeah, it's going to be something to look forward to in the future. Not forward to necessarily, but I'm saying just see what happens and cross our fingers and just hope it's as good as it's been these past 2 games. So that is actually it for our news this week. And so between now and rumors, we're going to go ahead and insert our community discussion. So, community discussion as usual is where we go out and ask you guys a question and then discuss your answers live on air. So this week's question is, between Kenobi and the new Ahsoka series, we've been seeing some pretty good lightsaber battles. So what is your favorite lightsaber battle in all of Star Wars? So we have a few answers here, and again, preemptively, thank you guys so much for answering. But Corey Allen Wise says it's got to be Kenobi versus Anakin, just masterful. Alex Mason says physically, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. Emotionally, Obi-Wan series, Vader versus Obi-Wan. Mark Hetherington says, I like many of them, but Luke and Vader in Empire Strikes Back is my favorite. And then Josh and Birkinshaw says, this is like asking which is our favorite child. I think my favorite one for the wow factor at the time is Yoda versus Dooku. However, for the absolute spine chills, it has to be Obi-Wan versus Vader in the Obi series because Obi-Wan went God mode.
Yep.
So all great answers. And
all good answers, yeah.
I mean, for me, I have to echo what JB says, right? It really is kind of like choosing your favorite child. I love it all, but there are some that stand out a little more than the others, of course.
Sure.
Kind of like me to my siblings, and I'm sure my parents would agree with that. But anyway, with that being said, I think for me, and again, I know this is the vanilla answer, but for me, probably my favorite has to be Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And first of all, it's great battle. It's well choreographed, but of course, there's a lot of emotional stakes to it too.
So that was what I was going to ask you is, and I know some of them kind of answered for both, but when we ask this question, are we asking as a whole with like, is it just about the lightsaber combat, or are we talking more on both?
I think that was kind of up to the interpretation of the individual.
So so when you are answering this, are you interpreting it as both then? As like the not only the physicality of it, but also...
Well, as you could tell, I kind of included both, right? That's why I chose that because, again, the physical and the emotional, right? There's so much good stuff in there, choreograph-wise, but there's also a lot of emotional points to it as well, so it kind of culminates up into the best one for me personally. And so again, I think that was, kind of up to the interpretation of how you wanted to put it. For me, I kind of I took all the factors and put them together to make what I believe is the best one.
That's fair.
But, here's the thing. But yeah, here's the thing. Physically, like Alex says, I do still think that Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan versus Anakin is still the best. Emotionally, I still say it's that fight, but you could go into the Obi-Wan versus Vader one, because that was a phenomenal one, and it was great technically and physically as well. But yeah, there was a lot of emotions there, and that final nail in the coffin of Obi-Wan realizing that Vader was no longer Anakin, so to speak. Yeah, that was just insane. So anyway, Drew, that's up to you. If you want to kind of culminate everything, if you're just saying physicality, whatever, what is your all-time lightsaber battle?
Listen, I know we don't when it comes to this stuff, we don't necessarily always give the most exciting conversation here because unfortunately I gotta agree with you that for me, I think as far as lightsaber battles go, even now, after everything we've seen, it's still hard to beat that Obi-Wan and Anakin battle in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
I don't know that anything has truly taken it to that level before or after, right? Like it's pretty insane the what they do in that.
Exactly.
And sure, is it maybe even to an extent over, like, kind of overly over the top, dramatic, like to the sometimes almost even cheesy with what they're doing. Sure,
Right,
but we
right.
kind of love it for that, and it is what it
Right.
is. You know, it was 2005, okay,
Right.
and so I still, that really stands out for me, and even emotionally, because that
Mhm.
is when Anakin, when to see Obi-Wan, trying to stop Anakin from doing this, and Anakin, screaming that he hates him, and
Yeah.
all this stuff, it's
Yeah.
very emotional. But I do kind of want to give a shout out to, some of the original trilogy as well
Yeah.
that didn't have the, you know, lightsaber battles that we get in
Right.
the prequels, and even what we get in the sequel trilogies, or maybe even a little more exciting sometimes than what we
Right.
got in the original trilogy. But there was a lot of emotional stakes, and so
Right.
I think somebody mentioned The Empire Strikes Back. And that was
Yes.
a very emotional moment, right? When that battle, even though again there wasn't necessarily anything too crazy, but even in Return of the Jedi, we get a really awesome battle between
Yeah. Yeah.
Luke and Vader there, and again very emotional. So
Yeah.
I just love all
Right.
lightsaber battles, and if we were just going with lightsaber fighting, just the physicality of it, I also have to mention Maul versus Obi-Wan and
Oh,
Qui-Gon,
never mind. Yes, that was a great one too. Yeah.
because that one really stands out even to this day. It
Oh
was
yeah.
a crazy one, and
The stakes were, and then like the stakes were so high, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and then we saw stuff in that one that we've never seen before, you know what I'm saying? And
oh sure, yeah, that was
Yeah.
kind of the I mean, that was kind of the big moment of seeing, well, that was the next lightsaber battle after what people saw in Return of the Jedi.
Dude, that's a
Right?
crazy thing to think. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a huge moment, and so but even if you go back and watch it today, it's cool to watch. It's
Oh
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
enjoyable.
It holds up.
Yeah, and
Another
so
another shout out is I thought you was gonna say this one when you said Maul, but the
Maul
Maul,
and-
Savage and Palpatine fight in Clone
Okay,
Wars,
yeah,
that
that
was
one's cool.
sick. And of course, then the Maul and Ahsoka fight in the last season of Clone Wars, but that was amazing
there's
too.
there's a lot of good fights.
So, and here's the thing, like I said, you're like, well, that's a kind of a vanilla answer or whatever. Or some people, and I'm not trying to single out Mark here, but some people might say like, well, seriously, the Empire Strikes Back, or original trilogy one's your favorite. And I think here's the thing. We can sit here and we can say, well, technically, this fight's better and da da da. But I think really, really what it boils down to is what emotional connection we have to it.
Very true.
I think that, for some people, they saw Luke versus Vader as their first one, and it had such an emotional impact on them that they're like, wow, that's got to be the best one. And then for some of us who saw it, but who kind of grew up more with the prequels, right? And we grew up with these characters of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and we see them fight each other, and like that emotional. That I think the emotional ties with that is what really draws us to that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, you're dead on, and because like we were at that very impressionable age when we watched that fight for the first time in Revenge of
Right.
the Sith, right? And like, I still remember just being just in awe of what I was witnessing, and
Yeah.
and just being blown away. And yeah, it had a lot to do with the fact that I was at that perfect age to experience it and just be so just amazed by
Right.
it, that sticks with you even now.
Yeah.
And like that memory of it. And sure, it's kind of like when you played this is for all you gamers that are listening.
Gamer alert.
Gamer alert. It you play a game, let's say that was on like the let's say Nintendo 64, okay?
Right.
And you played it and you just thought it had the greatest graphics, and it was just, it wowed you how amazing
Right.
it looked. But then you go back now and you're like, oh, this is not what I remember.
Yeah.
And it kind of, you almost kind of see some of these things in Star Wars through those glasses, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And not saying that they're not good, but like we see them in a special way because of the emotional impact that it has on us, through our memories of basically as a child, and how that's why so many people love the original trilogy that, were kids. and that's why they're devoted to that. That's why a lot of us at our age are devoted to the prequels, because that's when we were kids, and that's why there's a whole group that are going to feel that way about the sequel trilogy.
Exactly.
And we're gonna shake our heads and say, how in the world could you do that? But they were kids, and it's, for example, you ask my daughter right now who her favorite character is, she's gonna tell you Rey.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And you know, all of us are gonna be like, what? But she thinks Rey's the best,
because that's what she's growing up with. Yeah,
right. That's what.
And it's cool because there might very well might be some people who grow up and their favorite battle is Obi-Wan versus Vader in the Kenobi series, or perhaps, you know, Ahsoka versus Anakin in the Ahsoka series. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah. No,
so basically, what it comes down to, and what we're really saying here, is there is no wrong answer.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody has
some of you are more right than others.
Some of you are definitely more right than others, but
just kidding,
some of you have better taste than others. But
but for real though, yeah, I definitely see where you're going.
Alex would have said something about Jar Jar Binks had there been a lightsaber option, but there's not, so he had to pick something else.
Hey, he's saying it. I mean. So anyway, lots of great answers here, though. We're very thankful for you guys to, who took the time to answer our stuff.
Yes, and hey, and here's the thing, and I think we can all agree here: lightsaber battles is like the best part about Star Wars.
100%. Yeah.
It's amazing, and that's why I'm so thankful about with like Ahsoka, as they are not afraid of lightsaber battles. We've already gotten like. We got more of them already than we ever got in the sequel trilogy as a whole, and just
far better quality too.
Far better quality, and that is such a shame that we barely got any lightsaber fighting in the sequel trilogy, in my opinion. But I am super glad to see them just go all out with Ahsoka and these lightsaber battles, and like giving us just a lot of good stuff to enjoy. So absolutely.
So that ends our community discussion. Once again, thank you guys so much for answering. We really, really, truly do appreciate it, and we love the back and forth, the talk, the community discussion. We love it so much. So
yes,
we're gonna go ahead and quickly get into our rumors, and Drew's gonna lead us off on our very first rumor.
Yeah, so we have a rumor here that Sean Levy gives an update on his upcoming Star Wars movie. So we've heard some talk about Sean Levy in a Star Wars movie, but we've not really seen exactly. I don't know that it's ever been officially announced by Disney that I'm aware of. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am wrong. And so, but he's been talking about it multiple times.
Yeah.
And we've reported on that before, but he said that, he's currently in the development phase of his Star Wars project. But that it has been stopped in its tracks due to the writer's strike.
Oof.
And that work on it would resume once the writers had received their fair share. So they're just in the holding pattern that so much of our industry is in. So I put this in rumors because when you have somebody saying this, it's like that's great and all, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's truly happening. Not until the bigwigs at Disney tell us it's happening. You can have directors and writers pitch stuff all day long, but until they get the green light, that doesn't really mean it's going to happen.
100%.
And so, I think sure he really is working on this. I don't think he's lying about it, but I don't know for sure that we're truly getting this yet until I see some more like true confirmation.
And let's just put it this way: there's been shows that has had the executive green light, and it still didn't go through.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I mean, it's still a possibility that if they haven't even given the green light, that it may or may not be a thing.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm kind of looking here. It does not look like this is something that's ever been truly announced by Disney. But he has talked about it a lot in multiple different places. And again, I'm not saying this isn't the case. I think he has the background to do it. I mean, we're talking someone who has done a lot of stuff, including I think Deadpool, and he's doing Deadpool 3 right now. So, I mean, that alone is probably enough for him to get the opportunity Well, also he's directing Stranger Things, so like,
Oh yeah.
he's got enough
He's
there,
got
right?
stuff. Yeah, he's got some stuff.
So I have no doubt they probably want to use him in Star Wars, but again, it will be interesting it's interesting because like past what we've even heard announced, obviously there are more Star Wars movies in like being talked about and getting prepared.
Exactly.
And that's exciting and also kind of like nerve-wracking to just I just want to know
I want to know what
the
is.
plans
Yeah.
are and what they're
Exactly.
thinking. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say about that one. So
Yeah, same here. So our last and final rumor for this week is that the Lando writer announces that show will now be a movie. So I have some thoughts on this, but Drew, what do we have on that?
So this is kind of almost the exact same kind of situation here. The writer for Lando, Stephen Glover, which is Donald Glover's brother, which we had just had maybe a couple episodes ago, talked about how they are now the ones kind of working on this show. They said they had brought it up on a podcast to somebody, and Steven said Lando is not even a show. The idea right now is to do a movie.
Interesting.
So again, this is in rumors because this is still not a confirmed thing. The way I understand it, and after reading further, it sounds to me like this is more of a pitch than anything, that they're like pitching it as a movie now instead, because after the current writers, so they're probably doing some rewrites. They're trying to figure out what this is going to look like, and they're going to pitch that idea, right, as a movie. But I don't think anything is truly confirmed within this. But tell me, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I mean, as we talked about last time, right? We thought that this may or may not even happen because, you know, there's some big names on this and they can't really get anything nailed down, and this is going to take time, you know. There was I can't remember if this is something we talked about personally or no, it was on the podcast. I just can't remember. But basically, they're saying like, you know, this actor was like, I had a much bigger role in this, but then when I came in for this show, basically I was here for like one weekend. Do you remember what I'm talking about when I say that? What I'm trying to get at.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't remember off the top of my head. Something we discussed. I just don't remember what. Point I'm trying to get at with all this work around here is that you know, with shows like this, you know, where it's episodes, right? And you're gonna have to be at a location multiple different times, you know, and there's gonna be probably times when he goes there, he being Donald Glover, and he's gonna have to record like 30 minutes of stuff, and then he's done for the day. And so like what we talked about last time was that we're kind of like, well, you know what? I just don't know that it's even going to happen, because someone as big as Donald Glover, who does acting and he does music and he does all the stuff, he's probably not going to have time to dedicate to this show. So my point being, the fact that it's actually supposedly moving towards a movie actually makes a lot more sense, because when you have a movie, you're like, okay, here I have this dedicated time in space for this one thing, and you know they're going to obviously have to like come and go and stuff like that, but it's not going to be like a show where there's multiple different locations and there's you know, different times, and you're gonna have to work with other. I don't know. I'm making this sound not right, but
I know what you're saying, and I think that, you know, we've been burned a lot with series here lately, but we've also been burned with movies, Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think they do have to be very conscious of the story they want to tell, right? As we've talked about many times, Kenobi, I'm pretty certain it would have been better as a movie.
yeah.
But they had already kind of committed to it being a show and for a long time, and so they kind of just like worked it into that. So what I think we have here with the Lando series, it maybe they kind of got it right here, where they're like they started working on the story, and they're like, oh no, this makes way more sense to be a movie versus us trying to tell a series here. And you know, if they're smart about that and made that right decision, then I support it fully, because there's nothing worse than trying to do a series just because
Right.
you already maybe said it was a series, or
Cough,
blah
cough,
blah blah,
Kenobi.
or you just feel like you need, or like they're like, oh, we need something on Disney Plus, so this has to be a series, and then you pad out your story to fit that. But then you just hurt it in the process, just like how we feel about what happened with Kenobi.
Right.
So I think that, if Lando fits better as a movie with the story they're working on, then great. I say do it.
Right.
Is there some fear there with the whole box office stuff? Well, sure, because, I mean, the way I look at it, Solo didn't do what they wanted. Do we really think a Lando movie is going to do what we want? Because,
Right,
I mean,
right.
Han Solo is still a much bigger character than Lando.
Now, I will say, I do agree with you on that, but I will say, as kind of a slight rebuttal, is the fact that I think people are more primed for that type of content, though. When I say that type of content, I'm meaning kind of like a character biopic, one specific character. Because here's the thing: at the time when we got, I can't say Kenobi, when we got Solo, we were amidst all of these shows, or excuse me, all these movies, right? I mean, when I'm saying movies, I'm talking about, main trilogy, sequel, blah 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 stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so we're having these big movies that are part of the saga, and then all of a sudden we get this one movie about Solo, which doesn't really connect to anything that's going on. I think now we're again more primed to receive something like that, because we're getting all these shows, and it doesn't really have to fit into this huge big narrative every single time. And
so let me ask you this, and I see where you're going with that, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think that, yes, with all the series that we've gotten and stuff, people are kind of more open to the idea of a new story that's not part of the saga.
right.
But at the same time, do you think that something like a Lando movie, or even we can put the Solo movie into this category as well, do you think that it would maybe be better to be a movie that is on Disney Plus versus at the theater?
Yes, I do think that it would make more sense as a Disney Plus movie.
Because that's the thing they do, right? They do Disney Plus, straight to Disney Plus movies. And what that allows is you still tell the shortened story that you're wanting for that movie format, but you don't necessarily have to worry about the whole, like, is this going to flop at the box office?
And I think it also gives people a little more, like, expectation of what it is. And so I think maybe people don't give it... I don't think that people, like, maybe hold it as high in scrutiny when it goes straight to Disney Plus. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go to a movie theater and you're sitting down with your popcorn and your drink and you're just sitting there getting ready for a movie, people are expecting a spectacle. And when it doesn't meet that, or what they come in preconceivingly thinking it's going to meet, then you're in trouble. But when it goes straight to Disney Plus, you're kind of like, okay, well, it's not going to be a huge deal. And if it beats your expectations, then great. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I do think in that specific story and in that specific timeline, I think that it does make more sense as a Disney Plus movie.
Yeah, and there is no sign of that even being an option. They've never done that before for Star Wars. And I could see them being like, oh, we can't put a Star Wars movie straight to Disney Plus. It has to be a theatrical release.
Right.
And, a big portion of that also kind of depends on how much money are they going to be putting into this. If they put, tons and tons of money into it, they're definitely going to do a theatrical release.
Now,
yeah, so
one thing, last thing I'll say on that is, like, I do think the fact that Donald Glover is a part of it might very well push it towards a theatrical release, though, too, because, he's such a big name and they're wanting to garner the publicity of having Donald Glover. I could definitely see that pushing them to wanting to do a theatrical release. I just don't know that it's going to be successful, but I do think that's a possibility.
The one thing he has on his side, aside from the fact that he is famous, but is also those that he was considered, by most to be the best part about the Solo movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So getting him back, could end up getting people out to see it. And, also there is that potential of that Billy D. Williams might still also be attached to this,
True.
which might get even more people out, because this was a rumor a long time ago, and so, again, this may have all changed, but there was a lot of talk about this not just being or this kind of going between a couple of different time periods, including having Billy D. Williams and Donald Glover both in this story. So.
Well, and you could tell that they kind of set up a potential story there for Lando, because at the end of Rise of Skywalker, we see him like seeing that girl, and it's like, is it his daughter? Is it not his daughter?
Right, and definitely hinting at some stuff.
Yeah, and then like he was gonna help her go find something. I can't remember what it was. So yeah, I definitely think it would set up for the fact that you can go back into the Empire days, and him being there and stuff as a younger guy, but then flash forwarding to, which would be interesting, because we'd actually, if that's true, we would potentially be getting post Rise of Skywalker content in a movie, because it would be after Rise of Skywalker of him, potentially helping this girl out or something.
Right.
I don't know.
But we're probably getting the Rey movie before we ever see this Lando movie.
True.
But maybe
true.
not. But I assume that'll be the case.
Yeah. So at this time, that does conclude our rumors. So we're going to go ahead and get into our main topic. So our main topic, of course, being a review of Ahsoka Part 5, or Episode 5. And wow, just what a phenomenal episode. Again, shatters all expectations for sure. And so we are going to go ahead and jump over to our Facebook post. We did ask you guys what your thoughts were of the episode, and we're going to discuss those quickly before we get into our thoughts. And first and foremost, Alex Mason says, wow. Absolutely masterful writing and performances. I can't adequately put into words how much I love this episode. I've already rewatched it a couple of times, and it's just as good as the first. Corey Allen Y says, I can't wrap my head around this masterpiece. I had chills, so many emotions when Anakin's face went from light side to dark, when it flashed him as Vader, and then when he told her live or die, I had goosebumps. Just wow, they did this right. Brandon Duke says, from start to finish, just an absolute masterpiece. Holy Filoni. I see why they wanted it screened in theaters. Welcome back, Hayden Christensen. Filoni 2024. Thank you, sir, for giving us Star Wars again. And then Joshin Birkinshaw says, trust Filoni to blow us all out of the water. An absolute amazing episode. Episode. Still have goosebumps now. Hayden was amazing. Just utterly smashed it. The flashes of Vader, the red eyes, the voice change, ... the music. This is what the Obi-Wan series should have done to us. I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. Hayden Christensen deserves this, an outstanding episode. In Filoni, we trust. Amen. So yeah, I mean, guys, obviously there's no need to even really say it, but we're all on the same page here, and obviously our thoughts are on the same page as well. What a phenomenal episode, guys. I mean, that's all I can really say at this point. It's such a good episode.
It was all right.
Yeah, whatever. Get out of here.
Yeah, no, this was a very special thing. I think that the big thing about this episode is that it feels like a love letter to the fans, right?
Exactly.
For those that have stuck around with Filoni, essentially, with what Filoni has worked on, with that being, Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah.
This kind of feels like his way of really just being like, this is for you guys. Yeah. Not worrying about what, casual viewers may think, or people who just see the movies, not worrying about any, if anyone's lost or confused, but we just want you guys to get this, because you've stuck with us, and so here you go. Here's a little treat.
Right. Yeah, and that was what I was telling you when I would watch it. I was like, this just literally, like I said, feels like a love letter to us, to fans who are watching all the shows and following everything. And I'm kind of jumping ahead, I guess, here a little bit here, but it's funny because for us, for me and for you, and for those of you who are in our comments, like JB and Brandon Dukes and Coraline Wise and Alex Mason and all these guys who are like us, where they're following everything too, it's just jaw-dropping amazingness. But what's funny is that I actually had this experience with my uncle, who's, again, it's actually a pretty fun little dichotomy where I get to see things from my side of where I'm watching everything, I'm absorbing everything and stuff, and then I get to interact with my uncle, who is a very big Star Wars fan, but he doesn't really follow everything, and he's more of like the OG original trilogy guy. And so he was watching it, and he's like, man, he just called me today. He's like, I watched that Ahsoka episode, and he's like, it was got some good fighting and some cool stuff in there. He's like, man, I just there's some of that stuff I don't get. And he's like, seriously, space whales. And so again, that reiterates that thought process of a lot of times the Star Wars shows that's been coming out have been very much in the middle, right? Where we're gonna have stuff in there that hardcore fans is going to like, but for the most part we're going to try to just cater to everybody and make sure that they're all following and nobody's lost. But like we just said, basically in my interaction between myself and my uncle is a perfect illustration that this show, Dave Filoni's like, listen, I'm going to give a treat to the people who've been with me the whole time. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to give you a treat. If you've been following the story, I'm going to be giving you a treat by dropping all these little Easter eggs, dropping all these little references, and all of this emotional callback to these character interactions. Just a masterpiece. Masterpiece.
Yeah,
so
it truly is. So let's just go ahead and start from the beginning of the episode, and we'll kind of talk our way through it here. And feel free to stop me at any point you want to talk about something.
Yeah.
But we open on Cetos with the ocean waves crashing against the cliffside. The shattered star map lies in ruin. Hera Syndulla arrives, finding no one. Jason and Chopper come out of the ghost to look about, but Hera hears a noise and finds Huyang holding Sabine's helmet. He laments that he told Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren to stay together, but they never listened.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was actually a really cool little scene of where you see Huyang actually have like this emotional state,
Sure. And, you have to, if you look at it from his perspective, he's seen this time and time again, right?
Yeah.
And, he's, someone made a good point that, like, there's a good chance that he, like, trained Revan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
these legends, that he's been, because he was there from like the start,
sure,
of the Jedis. So, so he's seen all these people come and go, and he's seen, the falls and the way the order was completely destroyed and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's been through it all. And so again, he sees another two that.
That's what I was about to say. He's been around since the beginning, right? But what I was going to say is that he's seen this fall of the Jedi, where there's all of these Jedi, and the Order was thriving to some degree.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, now the Order is demolished; it's gone, and the only two that he knows of left are these two. And then now he thinks that they're gone. So now at this point, Huyang thinks that like everyone's gone. It's just it's just him now.
Right.
So that's a pretty interesting observation.
Yeah. So the opening credits play, revealing Part 5, Shadow Warrior. We shift to the world between worlds, where Ahsoka is face to face with Anakin Skywalker. He says that Ahsoka still has a chance to live and offers to finish her training. He then draws his lightsaber and attacks her, as they echo eerily similar dialogue to their last duel from Twilight of the Apprentice in Star Wars Rebels, as Anakin tells her to fight or die, essentially. And I was just immediately just giddy as can be as soon as they, they draw the lightsabers and they start fighting, and I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm just losing it already at this point.
Okay, so let's pause this. We haven't really mentioned this. Is that for a long time when shows came out, we would watch it together, and that was always a great time. But as the release days kind of changed and stuff, we just weren't really able to justify that. But as we said last week, it's like we knew this was going to be such a good episode that we had to try to watch together,
right?
And we did. But moments like this, when this was happening, we were just sitting there like grabbing each other, just jumping and hollering.
My son was actually sleeping, and at one point we I don't even remember where it was in the episode.
I know what it was. It was whenever they went to went down and they went to the Battle of Ryloth.
Oh, and it showed Anakin in the Clone Wars armor.
And
that was the point where we literally started screaming.
We stood up. It was like, ah!
Yeah, and my son all of a sudden just like sat up, like, in shock because he was asleep.
You woke him up.
Yeah,
I'm like, he needs to watch this. He needs to watch this. This is important. Wake him up.
Yeah, so we were very excited.
Yeah.
But anyways, so back with the other heroes, Hera and Huyang are trying to figure out where Sabine and Ahsoka are. Carson arrives, giving a nice shout out to our Princess Leia, stating that General Organa is trying to buy them time at New Republic headquarters as much as possible.
That was cool.
And that was cool. And this is something, that I think is important in this because, we're only 6 years after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So our trio of heroes, right? Luke and Leia and Han are still in their prime, and they're still out there ready to fight. So for something this big to start happening, as I've said many times, and I'll continue to say, it doesn't make any sense for them not to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, of course, we don't see her, but we are seeing how she's involved.
She's
right?
active in the story.
She's
somehow.
active. She is currently, at headquarters buying as much time as possible for Hera to be able to do what needs to be done. And so
that's a cool way to do it.
That's a cool way to do it because, of course, they're not going to show her. I don't know what they're going to do in the future. I don't know that they even know what they're going to do. Seeing as Carrie Fisher has passed, they want to respect that, but but also Leia is a very, again, active character in this time period.
Yes.
So how do you do that? I don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
But this is at least something, right? We get a name, we get them saying her name at least and knowing she's a part of this.
Right.
And that's better than nothing at all.
Yeah.
So then Jason tells his mom that he can feel something about the water. He has her listen to the waves because he can hear lightsabers crashing. And I don't know about you here, but I think that there's so many questions there's so many theories and stuff we can get into.
Right.
But this was one of the first times in the episode that I'm like, okay, maybe this is really happening.
Yeah.
Because he hears it.
Yeah.
Now, Hera, do you think Hera heard it, or do you think she was just kind of just trusting him and just kind of...
Well, I would say she was trusting him at first, right? But as it kept going, she was really concentrating on it. She was kind of like you could see her head kind of twitch, like she's hearing stuff. But what's interesting is we talked about this when we was watching it. I don't know that we've ever necessarily got a whole lot of her saying that she was force sensitive or whatever. But in Rebels, after Kanan dies, there does show that moment where his Force ghost is holding her, around her, and she's kind of like, I don't remember the exact.
I do remember that
happening, but it was as if she kind of was cognizant that he was there.
Acknowledged it.
Yeah,
but I kind of always assumed that was more of because they were a couple that
so
there was
just
some
felt
kind
that
of
because there's a connection
because they already had a connection type.
Yeah,
deal,
I don't know. I'm just
so
saying that's really the only time that we ever see anything.
For me, Hera being force sensitive too is maybe where we're okay, we're kind of
everybody's force sensitive.
Everybody's force sensitive
yeah.
Which is kind of, I'm afraid that's kind of what they want to do, because I know right now Sabine is can't use the force, but I really feel I kind of feel like they're leading to her starting to be able to use it though. Aren't you?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like that's kind of
100%. But here's the thing. You said hope not everybody's going to be force sensitive. Well, what's interesting is that they're kind of leaning towards that, because at the very beginning of the show, when Ahsoka and Sabine get together, Ahsoka talks to her how the force is everywhere. Everyone has force inside of them. There's just some who has a more natural propensity to contact it. Yeah. So it's I don't know how much I love that.
Excuse me, but
actually,
what is your midichlorian count?
What is the midichlorian count, actually? Because actually, in episode 1, when Qui-Gon was talking to him, he said that some people, it's near imperceptible. So,
yeah. So I don't know with Sabine. Here's what I would actually love if Sabine never has the Force.
Yeah.
But that she uses her Mandalorian stuff as her solution to not having the Force.
So instead of Force grabbing,
and what would be intriguing about that is that was what all that stuff was built for. With the things the Mandalorians
Jedi.
use, all of their tools were to fight Jedi,
to level the playing
and
ground
she
with
kind of
Force.
does. She kind of even shows that a little bit when she's fighting Shin, and she's like, oh, you don't have power, because she reaches her hand out, but then she uses her rockets. Again, that was kind of like her force push in a sense.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so,
that would be an interesting.
It would be
thing,
interesting,
yeah.
and it would be kind of curious to see how that would play out. But I don't know where they're gonna go with that. But we're kind of getting off track.
Yeah,
here.
we don't have much time today, unfortunately.
So moving right along, we have Huang then confirms for good that Jason is force sensitive, and we finally get a shout out to Kanan Jarrus, which was nice.
Nice.
In the world between worlds, Anakin is still dueling Ahsoka. He slices out the bridge from under her feet, and she falls into a red mist. Ahsoka returns to the Clone Wars and becomes a teenager again as it clears.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So as soon as this happened, I immediately was like, is this the rumors we heard about Mustafar? Because I saw the red, and I was like, are they doing it?
Yeah.
But no, they went.
Well, as soon as she stood up, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah,
She's
yeah. You're like, yeah,
smaller.
you can tell her. You can tell,
Yeah.
They're on one of their first missions. Ahsoka draws her once green lightsaber and charges into battle with Anakin, which we did. We also saw those Phase 1 clone troopers
so
running
cool.
through. We also, and of course, this is when we see Anakin in his Clone Wars armor, which was very exciting to see, something that we've been wanting for a very long, just imagining. Never really actually assumed we would get it for years,
exactly.
right? We never assumed we'd
Like,
never
why
see
would
it.
we get it,
Yeah.
you know?
So that was a very special moment for someone like you and me.
And you got to imagine that Filoni was thinking, like, people are talking, like, he heard it. He heard people talking about that. And he's like,
sure.
we got to get this in there,
sure.
you know?
Again, a love letter to the fans. That's what that was.
Yeah.
And I think something else that I really caught here is, like, Hayden Christensen, first of all, fantastic job. He
so
did great.
good.
But he really has truly kind of melded together his version from Revenge of the Sith with Matt Lanter's Clone Wars Anakin. And I think he's really kind of blended those together into what we just assume Anakin was always like. But if you go back and watch Revenge of the Sith, that's not really what he was like.
Right.
But he's done a really good job of kind of making it like that's what it's always. Does that make sense?
And what's cool is that we know for a fact that he went back and rewatched all the Clone Wars. Now he did that for Kenobi, but obviously he did it for this show too. But when he talked about how much he loved Matt Lanter's iteration of Anakin's, that was so cool.
I think because he was a little more whiny and stuff, but he's really kind of, you can tell his voice. Honestly, I think he gets to kind of just talk more normal, and I think it actually fits better with than what he kind of and I don't think it was ever his fault. I think it was, honestly, I think George Lucas wanted him to kind of be that way.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like trying to show that he never had that mother or father growing up, so he still was kind of always a kid and never grew up. Yeah. But anyway, we're not going to get into that.
Not to get into that. But anyways, fantastic job by Hayden Christensen throughout this entire thing. In the aftermath of the battle, which we do see Captain Rex in the background here, amidst the injured and dead clones, Ahsoka hesitates as she looks over her men. She calls out that she, as a Jedi, was trained to be a soldier, not a peacekeeper, and she wonders if she will have to teach her own future Padawan in combat and war. Ahsoka says she wants to stop fighting. Anakin says she will die if she does. The battle picks up again, and in one of my very favorite moments, we see Anakin kind of go off into the battle. And another thing to mention is, like, this is like a true war scene, right? Like everything is just full of smoke and it's
bodies
very gritty.
Yeah,
it's not like what we've seen before, really. In the this is more kind of like, oh, this is what it's real, what war's really like, you know what I mean? Like it's without that like rose-colored tinted glasses, so to speak,
of a kid show, trying to glorify.
And so you see him kind of go off running in with the clones, and as he does that, it switches to Darth Vader for a moment, and
good.
Wow,
so good.
What a shot. That will go down in history as just an
you just see
shot.
like his just a slight silhouette, and like lightning kind of goes off a little bit. So good.
So after that, but back with Jason and Chopper, they watch as Carson and his men continue to look for whatever Jason is feeling. Hera questions why she is there, and Huang offers his support for her unauthorized mission. Jason calls in that Chopper has picked up something on his scanners, and Hera heads out to check it. But in the Clone Wars flashback, we are firmly in Season 7 during the Siege of Mandalore now, as we see younger Ahsoka fight the Mandalorians who sided with Darth Maul. Unfortunately, no Maul cameo here. I was kind of hoping maybe he would just pop up. Just you know, I thought maybe, but
we did get the horned Mando helmets, which is pretty cool.
Yes, which was really cool. The only thing here I'll say, and I think the young Ahsoka that we get here, I think the actress did a great job.
Yeah.
I think she looked good. I will say though, I almost wish they had a middle-aged, or like a couple years older actress to play this part, because she felt too young in this part of it.
I totally agree.
To the point that I was like, oh, I'm not sure when this is, even though I saw and you remember, because I even said it to you, I was like, is this supposed to be during, like the Siege of Mandalore? Because she didn't look like old enough. She still looked too young.
Right.
I felt like there needed to be a little more like aging there, because we are talking multiple years in between that. But anyway, that's a small complaint.
Yeah.
But so we see them fighting. We see Ahsoka doing some cool battling here. We also see for sure Captain Rex at this point.
So good.
Which I'm almost positive he was the one that shows in the other scene too, just in the background.
Yeah. Well, because I'm pretty sure, because remember Rex switches to his Phase 2 armor from Phase 1 armor, and I'm pretty sure that you see his Phase 1 armor in that first scene.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you do.
Which is so cool. So cool.
So then but it confirmed to be Tamir Morrison, at least as the voice. Unfortunately, we didn't see his face, so I do wonder if he was ever truly there, if they took recordings from something else and used it here. I'd be curious to know if he truly recorded new lines for this or anything.
That's a good question.
But then Anakin comes out saying he wasn't part of this battle. And as she questions being a warrior, he says that she will soon be everything he is and have all of his knowledge. She's part of his legacy. She says they're part of a lineage of death and war, but Anakin says they're both more than that. She agrees, but notes he was far more dangerous and powerful than anyone else knew. He draws his now red lightsaber and attacks her once again. Now, this is another cool thing that we never got. There was what's it called? Art. What is it called?
Like fan art type
no,
thing?
Like for the movie, like when they're prepping the movie. Concept
art. Yeah.
There's concept art of the Battle of Mustafar where Anakin already had a red lightsaber. But we never actually seen Anakin with a red lightsaber, so that was another cool like little thing they threw in there for people that kind of always wanted to see that.
That was very cool. But dude, that shot, so they come they come back to like basically the World Between Worlds area, and after they was on the Siege of Mandalore. Anyway, and like he comes out of the smoke, and like
before that though, he like force pushes her.
Yeah.
And then so she gets pushed back into the World Between Worlds.
Yeah.
And then
So he's coming out of that smoke, but like he like shrugs his shoulder with his red lightsaber, and then lightning like flashes and like turns into Vader and turns
into Vader again.
And then immediately goes boom and just hits it, dude.
So good.
It's so good. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And then he comes in with like the red, yellow, orange eyes.
Yep, got that
so good.
Those Sith eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
But then you see his fighting style start to morph. So okay, pause here for just 2 seconds. So back before we went into the flashback times or whatever, we did get to see the Obi Annie spin. That was pretty sick. Yeah, that was so good. And he was using it against Ahsoka. But anyway, so flash forward to where we was just talking about, and so we start to see his fighting style start to change here from his younger years into like a mix between younger years and Vader, where it's like a lot more overhand attacks and heavy attacks. Oh, that was so cool. So cool.
So very cool. All of it just absolutely wonderful. But here we see they're fighting, and eventually here Ahsoka disarms him, holding the red blade to his throat. And this here, and I've seen kind of some differences of opinion here, but there's some people say for a flashing moment that Ahsoka's eyes turn to Sith.
Yeah,
others
like
say
it.
that it's like just the reflection of the lightsaber blade. But either way,
it was insinuating
maybe this moment of darkness, right? Where she could kind of fall into that. If she followed the path of Anakin type thing. It was just kind of showing that little hint there of what that could be.
Yeah.
But she turns off the blade and she throws it.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka says that she chooses to live. And when she does that, Anakin backs away. His eyes return to normal.
Changes.
Yeah, his whole face changes. With his last well wish. Anakin vanishes. He says, then there's
Still hope for
still
you
hope
yet.
for you yet, is
yeah.
what he says.
Yeah.
And as the pathways of the world between worlds vanish, Ahsoka sinks into rising water and emerges in the ocean of Cetos.
So good.
The New Republic
So good.
pilots rescue her, pulling her into the ghost. So let's stop right here
Yeah.
real quick. And let's kind of go over a couple things that I know we're all wondering.
Yes.
First of all, and I want your opinion on this, and I want those of you who are listening, I would love for you to give your opinions on this in the comments. Was that Anakin Skywalker as a Force ghost?
Yeah.
Was that him?
I've seen arguments on both ways, and there's, like I said, there's kind of good, convincing arguments on either side. Personally, I think no. I think that it's not Anakin. I could be convinced otherwise, but I do think that it was more okay. So, for instance, Empire Strikes Back, when Luke goes into the Dagobah forest and has to face himself, and he sees Vader. I think it was more of that kind of thing, in my opinion. That and I honestly, and again, this is kind of jumping ahead, but I don't know that it was actually the world between worlds either.
Well, and that's also what I was going to say.
I know he's going to, but
is it even the world between worlds? Because we don't technically see what we've seen the world between worlds as. Yes, there is a bridge. That's really the only thing that's the same.
Right.
Everything else is different.
Everything is like, you don't see the star. You do see stars, but you
don't see all the lines and stuff,
or the portals.
Or the portals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of differences, really.
Yeah.
Where and again, you could say some of it was just the art differences between a show and that's kind of what I took as at first. But again, we never saw any of that stuff. Where I think in the world between worlds, when Ezra goes there and he pulls out Ahsoka, they're physically there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't know that Ahsoka was ever physically in this place.
And here's the thing, another thing too, right? Every time we've ever seen it in any connotation of War Between Worlds, it's always been through a gate or a portal where they had to physically go through this gate or portal. Mm-hmm. And it does not, unless there's a portal under the water. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So this could have been still someplace in the Force.
Yes.
And that would still kind of line up that maybe it still kind of looks similar, but doesn't necessarily have to be the world between worlds as we know it. And I think that's kind of the way I'm leaning. And I'm leaning also with you that I don't necessarily think this was our Anakin as a Force ghost. I think that this, in my opinion, this seemed more like in Ahsoka's head, right? With the Force kind of, I think this was more of a kind of just completely in the Force, like almost battling herself here and kind of fighting herself. And whether she was going to give up and die or if she was going to continue on, right?
Well, I was gonna say, and I think here's the thing. You're like, well, what about all of this stuff? Like, why was Anakin there? Why the world between worlds? Because this is the iconography,
right,
for her. Right. And I think that the Force used those things for meanings, obviously, right?
Yeah.
The world between worlds, and I don't want to take too much time to get into why, the iconography and the meaning behind that, but it used that as the location. And because here's the thing too, right? Every time we seen them leave the world between worlds, it was always through a portal to go somewhere else. But yet Anakin was able to seamlessly like cut the bridge, and also they just transported somewhere else. It makes more sense that it was the Force was using places that were emotionally charging for her to help illustrate the points it's trying to show. Kind of like the Ghost Before Christmas Past or whatever.
Yeah.
To teach him these lessons.
Exactly. And you could argue, well, but how did Jason hear the lightsabers and all that? Well, again, I think this was something happening in the Force, right?
Yeah.
And it was this big thing. Obviously, it was more than just in her head.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't just a dream.
It wasn't just like a dream. There was obviously this big thing going on within the Force, but I don't necessarily think it was a physical thing. But I think that's why he could hear it, because he's in tune with the Force, right? And he could hear that and feel that. And I think that's kind of why he could do that. He was kind of almost sensing it more so than maybe even hearing it, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree.
And so I think, this was more of an internal struggle. And I think that what we see we see her kind of come to terms that she does want to live, right? And because I think in a sense she was in that water, she was dying.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of her deciding to live. And I don't think that we truly got Anakin Skywalker here as a Force ghost.
I agree.
And that and another reason why I think that is I don't think that is how Anakin Skywalker would act now.
Right.
As where he is at now. I don't think that's what he would do. I don't.
Right.
And I've heard some people argue, well, in Shadow of the Sith,
he transforms back and forth, yeah.
Well, I went back and read Shadow of the Sith. I went back and found the part in the book because I heard people saying that. And that's they're not necessarily correct on that. They're kind of it shows that there's something unbalanced in the Force because of a very ancient Sith Lord is trying to come back in that book, which is a big part of that book. And so it's creating this issue within the balance of the Force. And so Anakin reaches out to Luke and is like, you have to do something about this. This is a serious problem. Yeah. And because of this imbalance, it's creating this it's making it harder for Anakin to appear as a Force ghost. But when he does, it's showing him as his younger self as he saw in Return of the Jedi. But for a split second, he switches over to his how he looked when he died.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But it wasn't quite Vader.
It does not say
right?
It does not say it showed him as Darth Vader. It said it showed him as he appeared under the mask when he died.
Okay, so that technically was Vader, but it technically wasn't, right? He was in the Vader suit, but that's what I was going to get to, is the only way that a Force ghost can even appear or even be a Force ghost is because you have become one with the Force and you're in the light side of the Force. That's the only way. And so they're basically meaning there can be no remnant of the dark side in you. That's the way I've interpreted it. Maybe I'm wrong, but basically you're not able to jump into it like that.
Another theory I've been hearing people say is that he is essentially the father now of the Mortis, and that he essentially has both in him, light and dark, and that's why he constantly switches. He constantly switches back and forth between this. But again, I don't think that just doesn't seem right to me.
Right.
That doesn't seem right. I totally agree. I think if I'm kind of getting all over the place here, but I think that we do have to see, because we got Anakin in like this, we now have to get Anakin as a Force ghost, as a true Force ghost.
Yeah.
And have that conversation with Ahsoka.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we also need to see him do that with Luke. I don't know when and how they're going to do that, but I think we need that. But I think that because we got this, where again, I don't think it's truly Anakin, we now have to get the real Anakin.
Sure.
And I could be wrong. But I don't think I am.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Let's very quickly go over the rest of it, and because that was not the end of the episode. I thought this whole episode was going to be just in the world between worlds, but actually it was not. We see Ahsoka awaken and is greeted by Huang, who shares that Jason is the one who found her. We join the others as Ahsoka's wearing her white robe, the one that we saw at the end of Rebels.
Looks like Walmart robes.
Hera and Ahsoka try to piece together what happened as Ahsoka used a particular Force impression ability to discover what happened to Sabine. She hears the echo of Balin coaxing Sabine to join him from the last episode, but Carson interrupts. We do now call her Ahsoka the White. At least that's what everybody's calling her. The New Republic fleet is coming for Hera, Carson, and their troopers, and they're not happy. Hera leaves, finding Sabine to Ahsoka while she deals with the New Republic. Ahsoka then sees the Purrgil, the space whale-like creatures who took Ezra the first time. It's here that Hera faces a very unhappy Mon Mothma. Very upset with Mon Mothma's decision here. It's sad, to see her kind of just be like, well, sorry, my hands are tied. You guys gotta come back and leave.
That was
weird. I was like, come
on.
After
all of the stuff you've done.
You know better, okay? Come on. You know they need to do this.
Yeah.
But whatever. As Mon cuts the call, Ahsoka arrives and knows how to find Sabine. Ahsoka and Hera fly their ships up to the Purgle, joining in with their pod. They find the largest of the beasts they can get, and Ahsoka goes outside onto her ship. She communes with the Purgle, but more complications happen. The New Republic has arrived, so Carson goes to keep them occupied as long as they can, which is a funny part.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. Jason looks on in wonder as Ahsoka connects through the Force with the Purgle. Ahsoka tells Ewing to fly into the Purgle's very big mouth. They set down the ship, and Ahsoka muses that she has no idea where they're going. Also, another thing that I noticed throughout this is Ahsoka's demeanor has completely changed, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, too, another interesting thing is that all of a sudden she seems to have more abilities that she's opened herself up to, too, because she used Force... I can't remember the word for it, but being able to sense the past of an object, like we see with some different characters, she all of a sudden has that now. And then also she does what Ezra can do, which is communicate with animals through the Forces too. Yeah. So that's interesting that we're all of a sudden seeing those things.
Yeah, and so she seems more at peace. She just seems more happy, and so it'll be interesting to see that continue, because we only get like a hint of it here, but it'll be interesting to see how that continues in the next episode.
Yeah.
So the Purgle flies up into space between the New Republic ships. Hera and Ahsoka say their goodbyes, and the Purgle zips off into hyperspace with Ahsoka and Huyang in tow, where the episode ends.
Yeah, and do they go to the right place? Who knows?
Yeah, I guess we don't know, right?
Yeah.
We have to assume that they're going to at least be in the right galaxy. But listen, it's a whole galaxy. So that's the thing. Like, just because you're in the right galaxy, there's still, you just seem that's
it can be anywhere.
It can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, we're in uncharted territory here, and it's very exciting. As much as we loved everything about this episode and all of the callbacks and everything, well, now we're about to go into what you assume is all new uncharted territory of where they can do anything.
Yeah.
They can literally do anything. Who's to say that they even have the same aliens here? Who's to say who's to say anything is the same? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't know what anything's going to be like in this galaxy.
And
we
crazy.
only have been in one galaxy in Star Wars.
Ever. Yeah, we've never delved into that. But also, it's a funny thing too is that like I was confident that we were going to at least see a glimpse of it in this episode, but nope.
But it gives us something very exciting to look forward to on Tuesday when this next episode airs.
Yes.
So you guys buckle up, strap in. This was a phenomenal episode that will go down in history.
Absolutely.
As something to always remember, and we'll continue, I'm sure, to talk about it for a long time to come and theorize on some things until we get some answers, because again, there's still some things that we need answered here.
Oh yeah.
And I assume we'll get those answers eventually, but for now it may just end up still being theories for a while. But with that being said, Braxton, if you want to go ahead and give us the answer to this week's question.
Yes. So as we prepare to close out, let's go ahead and go over our trivia. And that is the question being, the Star Wars Holiday Special marked the first appearance of which Star Wars character? And the answer is... The Star Wars Holiday Special, which aired on November 17th, 1978, marked the first appearance of the character Boba Fett in an animated segment of the show, which also showed the first existence of the Mythosaur as well. That's a bonus thing for you. And it says the special has never been released on video. However, bootleg home-recorded videos have been circulating for years and are now all over the internet. George Lucas once remarked at an Australian convention that if I had the time and a sledgehammer, I would track down every bootleg copy of that program and smash it.
I'll throw in a little something else fun for you there. It also was the rifle that Boba Fett has in that was what they ended up using to inspire them for the rifle that that Mando has in season 1. I don't know if he has it past season 1. I can't remember, but he definitely has it in season 1.
Yeah. Very, very cool. But with all of that said, guys and gals, we just thank everybody so much of you guys, your continued support, just listening to the podcast and answering our questions and just being a part of our community. We are so thankful for that. And we look forward to hearing from you. We have our trivia and our fun facts, and we have our community discussion, all that good stuff. And we have your thoughts on the episode. We want to just continue hearing from you guys, so please reach out to us on our social medias. We also want to thank our good friends at Galactic Empire for allowing us to use their music for the intro and outro. So just Please go check those guys out. Amazing music.
Amazing.
But please like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for weekly news, polls, discussions, and more. Also, please follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, and leave us a review. We actually do really want to hear from you guys, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We would love to know what you guys think. But, yeah, guys, wraps up this week's episode. Please join us next week for Season 2, Episode 3. Last but not least, may the Force be with you. And we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.